Welcome to Narratives Leadership Story Talks, where great leaders go beyond the bottom line to create lasting impact. Join hosts Jerome Deroy and Julienne as they uncover the stories behind real-world challenges, offering practical insights to help you lead with empathy, authenticity, and purpose. Each episode dives into how leaders use storytelling to build trust, foster connection, and inspire action. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, driving change, or building high-performing teams.
So how do we tell those stories to motivate people to become involved? And my students often come in and they want to inform the public. And I say, that's great, but we have to do more than inform. So we have a triad that I call data, emotion, action. So we start with the data, always, and then we find the story that will effectively tell what's going on, and then we figure out how to get it out to the world. And we try to be really focused. So who's your target audience? Is it going to be policymakers? Is it going to be people who are at risk? Is it going to be healthcare providers? Because the stories you tell may be quite different depending on your target audience.
Hi, everyone. This is Leadership Story Talks, and we just heard from Dr. Neal Baer telling us about the power of stories and his particular process of data, emotion, action, which I thought was really interesting and got me thinking about a time when I saw that in action myself. You know, when did I kind of see a story that went from, that was created out of data and that then led to action? Do you want me to start, or do you want to?
Oh, you could go ahead and start. But I was so taken away by this session about all these different levels and how he used the arts and science and math. It was just great. But you go on.
Yeah, and I do want to take that opportunity to just say to people that this is we're talking about episode 144. So go and look for that if you haven't listened to it, because it's really worth it to listen from beginning to end. We're only taking a snippet today. But yeah, this idea of looking at data first. What's the data telling you? And then a story comes out of that. And then that story leads to specific actions. For me, it took me back to something and someone we've talked about on this podcast. We've even had her. We've interviewed her on our podcast, and that's Amy Bach, who's the CEO of Measures for Justice, because her company, for those of you who don't know, takes data across the criminal justice system and brings it to elected officials, prosecutors, judges, and everybody actually involved in the criminal justice system to sort of show them, here's the real data of what's going on. Now let's use that data to tell the story of it, of what's going on, finding the people who are affected by discrimination and, overzealous prosecutors, et cetera, people who should not be in the justice system to begin with. And let's make it a systemic thing. Let's take an action that's going to help us actually change the whole system. And they've been super successful. They're in almost every state now. They're a fairly young company, but they've been able to raise lots of funds and grow from just 10 people to more than 100 now. And they've got so many great stories. So for me, that's really what came out came out of thinking about that, was their ability to take data about the criminal justice system and then tell stories that are about real people that are being affected by that criminal justice system, whether it's negatively or positively, by the way, just to show all the actors and all the ramifications. And that has led to some amazing actions. New laws have been passed, in states where you wouldn't have thought those laws could have been passed. And so I really encourage everybody to look more into it. And of course, I'm biased because I've been working with Amy Bach since 2011, when this was just an idea, and now it's 100+ organization. So that's my quick take on that.
It resonated with me because it brought to mind, just like your example and Amy's work, of a situation where I was a guest at a fundraiser. I was there for a cocktail hour and milling around with everybody. And I just happened to speak to the person who was going to be presenting. And she was bemoaning the fact that the trains were late, people were delayed. It was like one of these crazy days in New York where everything was going wrong. And the organizers were telling her, don't tell any stories, just give the slides with the metrics, ask for the money, and you're done. And the woman who didn't know me from a hole in the wall, I said, just trust me on this. Just trust me on this. The story is the most important thing you can tell. Give a
Mm.
little bit of information to make your bosses happy, but do give the story because that's what's going to matter. And she went and listened to me. She had faith. And you didn't hear a pin drop. Everybody was still, the wait staff, everybody was listening intently and leaning in. So that story spoke to the heart. So that's what was so important. What Neal is talking about is that human connection of solving problems on more than one level, because it's
Mm.
never one thing that's going to solve the issue you're working on, but to humanize it and connect the dots and use science and math and learning for where it has benefit, and then use the other thing like the arts and communications where it can
Mm.
really deliver something that's so special and so important.
Yeah, and it's always fascinating to me to hear from someone like Dr. Neal Baer, who, was a medical student, went into media and produced, and wrote for these amazing shows like ER, and Law and Order SVU and all these things that we still see today, actually. And to see how his involvement, one person among many writers, many producers, we're talking about big shows, and how
Yeah.
he was able to actually bring his own experience into the writing, because of course that's all you can do. That's all we have is our own experience, but trusting that that experience actually mattered and could be put into an episode of a hugely successful show like ER, and make a difference. And then to take all of that experience and then create a course at Harvard and work with students now to use data and and create stories and then take an action in communities that need it, I think is pretty remarkable. And it's always such a joy to be able to see someone's journey that seems so kind of disparate. Wait, you're a doctor, but you're also a producer. How's that work? And then you hear his story in this interview, and it all makes sense. It makes perfect sense. So I
Yes.
really encourage everybody, if you want to be inspired, of course, any of our episodes will inspire you, but this one in particular, I think, if you're looking for an eclectic career journey, and also some really practical tools and points that he made about the power of storytelling and how to use data and reinforce it with stories, it's really well worth it.
There's a phrase that kept coming to mind when you were describing this now is in improv, when you do certain exercises with your participants, one of the phrases they use is yes and, to
Mm.
build on connections and phrases. And his career is definitely yes and. Like I started here and then yes and I did the screenwriting and producing, helping with the producing, and then I saw more possibilities. So he kept layering on building options for people to be successful and really appreciate that power of medicine and healing and counseling and listening. So
Yeah.
yeah, quite a powerful. I'm gonna listen
Yeah.
to that one again for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll stop there for now, but definitely go back to our episode vault in on narrative.com, NARATIV.com, and anywhere you find your podcasts. That was episode 144 with Neal Baer. I hope that these insights are helping you wherever you might be. We're always happy to listen to you. Please get in touch with us and let us know how you're doing and where we might be able to support you in your own storytelling. Always happy to listen. Thank you so much again for being here. Thanks, Jules, for being my wonderful co-host once
Always,
again.
always a pleasure. So delighted and always thrilled. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.